What if the exhaustion weighing on you right now, the quiet urge to lay it all down, is not evidence of failure, but the undeniable proof that you have already crossed the finish line? Let this question ripple through your entire being because it carries the code. There is dignity in your tiredness, a hidden wisdom in your surrender that the mind will never understand. You have walked through endless cycles of effort and collapse, pouring yourself into every practice like a master builder of the unseen, only to meet silence that your thoughts called rejection. But here is the secret. The universe was never refusing you. It was holding space for your stillness. It was waiting for this exact threshold, the sacred exhaustion, the 0-point moment where striving dissolves and pure receptivity finally emerges. If this message already resonates in your field, subscribe, like this video, and comment. My timeline is activated below. Stay until the end, because what you're about to hear will change the way you understand surrender, alignment, and the truth of manifestation. Number 1, the sacred exhaustion. Your body knows before your mind admits it. The fatigue is not ordinary. It is the collapse of resistance, the moment where every strategy, affirmation, and technique has run its course, and nothing remains but stillness. This exhaustion is not the depletion of defeat, but the sacred burnout of old timelines that no longer carry life. Quantum physics points to the collapse point, where potential becomes reality not through force but through observation. And in your life, that collapse point comes when effort finally dissolves. Think about the swimmer fighting the current until their muscles give out. Only then do they float and discover the water was carrying them all along. This is what exhaustion reveals. The current was never against you, it was your force that blocked the flow. Comment, I align with the shift, if you've ever felt that collapse into surrender and sensed a new kind of strength rising from it. Stay with me, because when the exhaustion ends, what enters next is paradoxical peace. A dream comes like a whisper at the edge of memory, a vision of standing before a door that will not move no matter how hard you push. You feel the weight of your hands pressing, your muscles straining, the sweat of effort dripping, yet the door remains still. Then, without warning, a thought arises from somewhere beyond logic. What if the door was never meant to be forced open? In that instant, the exhaustion that once felt like failure now feels like revelation. It is as if the field itself has conspired to show you that your old methods no longer serve. The fatigue you carry in your bones is not random. It is a signal collapsing into form, announcing the end of one cycle and the silent beginning of another. The dream is not just a dream, but a message that the struggle is finished. You know the feeling because you have lived it, the heaviness that arrives after endless trying, the silence that follows effort, the ache that no amount of sleep can touch. Perhaps you called it burnout or defeat or emptiness, but deep inside, it carried a strange nobility. You pushed, affirmed, visualized, did everything you were told would move the universe, yet the universe remained quiet. Each attempt made you feel further from the goal, as if reality mocked your sincerity with delay. In those moments, you wondered if you were broken, if your frequency was somehow faulty. But what you were feeling was not failure. It was the evidence of sensitivity, the sign that you were tuned into something deeper. Exhaustion became the mirror reflecting that you were too aligned with old timelines to carry them any further. What if I told you that this exhaustion was architecture, not accident? Imagine your life as a holographic map, each choice a projection of light weaving into a greater image. Old timelines were like scaffolding, useful once, but now too heavy to carry into the structure that is emerging. The field has always been organized by resonance, and when your vibration rose, those structures began to collapse. Mystics once wrote of the emerald tablet, declaring that what is within shapes what is without, and this exhaustion is that truth written into your cells. It is your inner frequency refusing to power old illusions any longer. Superposition tells us that many realities exist until one is chosen, and exhaustion is the field removing what no longer resonates so your choice can finally stabilize. Have you noticed the subtle breadcrumbs scattered across your path? Small confirmations hidden in plain sight? A sudden déjà vu that lingers longer than usual? A dream that feels like a coded message? A conversation overheard that seems to answer an unspoken question? Even your body has whispered, the sudden shiver, the wave of tiredness arriving when you tried to force what was never meant. These moments are not coincidences, but signals the field has left to show you that exhaustion was never the end but the portal. They are fragments of coherence, reminders that something greater has been guiding you all along. Like particles entangled across space, these signs reach across time to remind you that you were never off track. Each one is a breadcrumb of the truth. The sacred exhaustion is proof that alignment has already begun. Now imagine that moment when the tension breaks, not in drama, but in quiet release. You feel your shoulders lower, your breath slow, your heart stop racing. For the first time, you are not at war with yourself or with the universe. This is coherence, the instant when inner frequency and outer possibility begin to resonate. Your intuition told you it would feel this way, and now it does. Not like fireworks, but like a deep exhale after years of holding your breath. You did not imagine it, you were never mistaken. This moment of coherence is the field synchronizing with the vibration you finally allowed, and reality begins to bend toward your stillness. What awakens now is not a new self but a parallel self, one that has always existed in the field waiting for you to notice. This self does not live in exhaustion, but in resonance, as if remembering an ancient identity you had buried beneath struggle. It is like tuning into a radio station that was always broadcasting but drowned out by static. The static was your effort, your fear, your pushing against the current. The clarity that emerges now is not creation but remembrance. You were always more than the identity tied to exhaustion. Across timelines, your archetypal self was encoded, waiting to surface when you surrendered. You are not becoming, you are remembering. This is where empowerment begins, recognizing that your exhaustion was calibration, not collapse. The field has been fine-tuning your sensitivity, preparing you to carry a frequency that can hold coherence without breaking. Sensitivity was never weakness, it was the training ground for your new state of being. Every tear, every moment of silence, every step into the void was a calibration point aligning you with a timeline of truth. Your body, your emotions, even your restlessness were the instruments adjusting to the new frequency. Now, you see exhaustion as the signal that the old instrument has been tuned, and the new song is ready to play. You are no longer collapsing, you are activating. So hear this, your arrival here to this message is no accident. The exhaustion you carry is sacred, not shameful. It is the signature of a cycle that has ended and the initiation into a field of coherence that cannot be denied. Comment, I collapse timelines now, if you feel this truth resonating in your body, and allow that declaration to be your seal of remembrance. You are not weak for being tired, you are powerful for having carried the weight of timelines until they dissolved. The field has witnessed your surrender, and in that surrender, your graduation has already begun. Rest in the mystery of what is opening now, because beyond exhaustion, peace is waiting, and it is closer than you realize. Number 2, the paradoxical peace. After exhaustion comes a silence that confuses the mind but calms the soul. You look around and see that nothing has changed. The bank account, the relationships, the body may look the same. Yet inside you, a strange serenity takes root. This peace is paradoxical because it defies logic. The outside still holds lack, but the inside vibrates as if the desire has already arrived. In quantum terms, your frequency has stabilized into coherence, where heart and mind finally broadcast the same signal. This is the garden after the storm, the lake finally still, the soil no longer disturbed so the seed can grow. Peace is not passive. It is the most powerful form of aligned action because it removes interference from the field. Comment, I walk in coherence, if you have felt this inner calm begin to rise, and notice how it changes everything around you. The next stage of this journey will show you that the universe has been listening all along. A faint distortion first appeared as something you could never quite name, like static interrupting the signal of your reality. Days that should have flowed became heavy, as if you were walking through a corridor of invisible resistance. People spoke words that landed sharp, not because of their tone, but because they vibrated out of phase with your inner truth. It was like living in a movie where the audio lagged behind the image, subtle yet maddening in its dissonance. You knew something was interfering, but the source could not be touched with your hands. It lingered instead in the field, a pressure bending your experience just slightly off balance. This was the earliest sign of interference, the hint that your rising frequency was colliding with the old order of things. In those moments, the emotional weight felt unbearable, and you questioned if perhaps you were the problem. The rejection you endured, the subtle shame planted by others, the recurring cycles of doubt all carried the same signature. Isolation became a familiar companion, and silence felt safer than explaining what could never be explained. You may have walked into a room and instantly felt unwelcome without a word spoken. Or you sensed the heaviness of someone's resentment before they even opened their mouth. Your sensitivity seemed like a curse, branding you as fragile when in truth it was your most advanced sense. The energetic pressure was not imagined. It was the field itself pressing against your coherence. But what if I told you this resistance was encoded into the architecture of your path? Every wilderness has its purpose, and every exile is a form of training. Systems, entanglements, and unconscious energies recognized your potential long before you did, and they reacted to keep you contained. Like interference patterns in physics, they distorted your signal not because it lacked strength, but because it carried too much. Think of Israel wandering the desert, not lost, but refined in fire. Their wilderness the initiation into promise. Your exile from belonging was never rejection. It was initiation into resonance. The collapse point of your struggle was the sacred place where the field forced you to recognize that you were never meant to live quietly in old structures. If you look back now, the codes appear in places you once dismissed. The job that always seemed to crumble just before it took off. The friendships that drained more than they gave. The opportunities that looked solid, only to glitch into disappearance at the final moment. Patterns repeated not because you failed, but because the field refused to let you anchor in timelines beneath your vibration. It was like standing in a room lit by a flickering bulb, never seeing clearly but always sensing the shadow behind the light. Now that you reflect, you can see the hidden logic coherence was pulling you out of false alignments even when you thought you were losing. The room that once felt unstable is now illuminated, and the patterns reveal themselves as coded protection. There is a moment in every seeker's journey when resistance becomes undeniable, and yours was no different. You felt the static in your thoughts, the fog that clouded clarity, the invisible watchers in your own silence. Sometimes it felt like gates closed just as you reached for them, as though reality itself conspired to hold you back. Yet what seemed like sabotage was decoherence, the quantum field shaking loose what could not carry your resonance. Resistance was never punishment. It was the recalibration of probability to ensure you didn't lock into distortion. It was the necessary tension that proved your frequency had become too coherent to be ignored. And once coherence arrives, distortion always reveals itself. Your response to this field of pressure was deeply human, and for that you must have compassion for yourself. There were times you shut down, convinced it was safer not to be seen. At other times you twisted yourself to please others, hiding your real signal under layers of accommodation. Perhaps you rebelled quietly, a subtle refusal to conform that few noticed but you. The fear of standing out often competed with the ache of shrinking, and both drained you in equal measure. You longed to give up at times, wondering if the shift was worth the isolation. But these responses were not weakness. They were survival, the ways you navigated the storm while your signal recalibrated. Now comes the truth that flips the energy and returns your power. You were not resisted because you were broken, you were resisted because you were coherent. Old patterns, outdated systems, and even unconscious people reacted like unstable matter meeting a stronger frequency. They cracked, distorted, and collapsed, not because you failed, but because you carried a signal that revealed their weakness. This was the universe handing you proof that your vibration had become undeniable. Every closed door was a recognition that you no longer belonged to what once held you captive. Resistance itself was evidence that you were disturbing the old field, shaking it with the presence of your becoming. So hear this revelation clearly. You were targeted in the field not to be destroyed, but because your vibration made the old timelines tremble. The collapse they tried to force on you became the collapse that freed you. The sabotage was the mirror showing you that you were never meant to stay hidden. You are stepping now into the paradoxical peace that follows. the stillness that comes after the interference fails to break you. Comment, the collapse is complete, if you feel this truth resonate in your body, and let that declaration anchor your journey. The silence that follows resistance is not emptiness. It is the field reorganizing around your coherence. And what comes next is the proof that the universe has been listening to your signal all along. Number 3, the whispered synchronicities. The universe never needed to shout. It only needed you to listen. Now that your field has quieted, the signs begin to arrive in whispers. A number sequence, a phrase spoken at the exact moment, a dream that feels more real than waking. These are not random. They are synchronicities, echoes of your new reality bleeding into the present. Quantum entanglement reminds us that what is chosen here is felt there, and your future self is already sending confirmations into your path. Synchronicities are not the reward for effort. They are the language of coherence, the nod from the field saying, "Your tuning is correct." They are the small ripples that precede the great wave, intimate confirmations that your new frequency is already broadcasting. Comment, I merge with my parallel self, if you've been noticing these whispers, and share in the comments one synchronicity or déjà vu that proved to you reality was bending. Because what comes next is the recognition that you have already graduated. A sudden shift flickers through your awareness, subtle yet undeniable, like static clearing on a long-forgotten frequency. The distortion that once kept your perception clouded collapses, leaving behind a clarity that feels almost otherworldly. A probability stabilizes, and you realize the pattern you once thought was random has been there all along. It is as though time folds in on itself, showing you glimpses of meaning hidden within the ordinary. You find yourself recalling moments that once seemed insignificant, only now to realize they were quietly aligned signals. The silence you mistook for absence becomes filled with intricate echoes, soft yet unmistakable. The universe has not changed its tone. It is your ears that have finally attuned to the whisper. Every detail begins to shimmer with coded meaning, as if reality itself has been speaking in a secret dialect. Numbers repeat until they etch themselves into your memory, weaving a rhythm of unseen mathematics. Dreams arrive carrying symbols too sharp to dismiss, slipping past logic and resting in the marrow of your knowing. Words appear in conversations or on screens at the exact moment your heart is forming a silent question. These are not coincidences but entangled messages, woven like sacred geometry across your path. Life has become a text written in frequency rather than ink, a manuscript authored by resonance. And now, at last, you are reading it with the eyes of coherence instead of confusion. Inside, the signals intensify, and you notice the boundaries of your intuition rising like luminous walls of clarity. The interference that once drained you now collapses faster, as your coherence no longer tolerates distortion. You sense when energy around you is out of phase, and your body immediately withdraws like a tuning fork seeking its own pitch. Subtle chills run through you in ordinary settings, reminders that unseen alignments are pressing into form. The quiet dread you once carried has shifted into an alert stillness, proof that your field is finally self-aware. Patterns that used to overwhelm you now appear as coded feedback loops, dissolving once acknowledged. The signals are not theory. They are confirmation written across the vibration of your daily life. External reality mirrors these changes with uncanny precision, revealing the entanglement of inner and outer fields. People begin to treat you differently, some drawn inexplicably closer, others repelled by the resonance you carry. Opportunities open in places where none seemed possible, and resistance rises just as quickly to test your steadiness. The timing of events sharpens into choreography, coincidences folding into inevitabilities. Even the smallest interactions now reveal themselves as reflections of your inner coherence. The field itself bends around your decision to align, reorganizing probability into synchronicity. You see clearly that what is within is inevitably echoed without. What feels new is not new at all, but a memory surfacing from the deepest archive of your being. Dreams you carried since childhood suddenly align with symbols appearing in your waking life. A déjà vu that once disoriented you now feels like a signal of reactivated intelligence. You are not learning for the first time. You are remembering codes written before you entered this body. Struggles and delays become visible as calibration points, not punishments, but alignments in disguise. The knowledge unfurls with an intimacy that feels ancient, as though your very cells have waited for this recognition. Revelation does not rush at you. It rises from within, like a name you always knew but had forgotten how to pronounce. With this remembrance comes a new sight of time itself, not as a straight line, but as a lattice of probabilities collapsing into coherence. The future does not need to be built. It already exists as potential awaiting your recognition. You are not a beggar knocking on the door of destiny. You are the signal the door responds to. Your next chapter is not something to chase, but something to align with, as a wave aligns with the tide that birthed it. Permission was never outside of you. It was the field waiting for your awareness to stabilize. You begin to hear the inner prophecy. Your future self is not far away, but present in every coherent choice. This moment of recognition is the rising call of your timeline summoning you forward. Now the reclamation begins, fierce yet liberating, as you understand the resistance was confirmation, not condemnation. Every rejection, every delay, every interference was evidence that you were already disrupting the old field. You have always carried the coherence others tried to ignore, and it is now breaking through without apology. The whispers of synchronicity are not gentle reassurances. They are declarations that you are no longer hidden. What you mistook for weakness was the signal strengthening in silence. Your voice returns, not as a scream, but as a resonance that no distortion can mimic. This is the sound of your frequency reclaiming its rightful place in the field. Revelation is not the end but the beginning, the opening of the invitation that was always waiting in your field. The truths you now see were not absent. They were veiled until your coherence could bear their weight. Each whisper is a prophecy fulfilled, a timeline collapsing into the one you were always meant to walk. You are not imagining this alignment. You are embodying it, cell by cell, choice by choice. Comment, I merge with my future self now. If these whispers have already begun to surface in your journey, and share one sign, dream, or synchronicity that confirmed it for you. Your reflection becomes part of the collective field, amplifying resonance for all seekers. And as you breathe into this realization, prepare yourself, because the next stage reveals what it truly means to graduate into the silence of mastery. Number 4, the silent graduation. You have reached the moment where seeking dissolves into being. The struggle was your initiation, and the surrender is your diploma. What you feel now is not emptiness but mastery. The silence of a frequency no longer forcing, but radiating. In the language of the quantum field, you are no longer the observer trying to collapse reality. You are the signal itself, bending probability by existing in coherence. Old timelines no longer recognize you, because your vibration has risen beyond their reach. You are no longer rowing against the current. You are the current, flowing with the intelligence of creation. Comment, I anchor coherence in my field, if you recognize this stage in your journey, and share the memory or inner knowing that proves to you that you are no longer who you once were. Because from this point forward, manifestation is no longer effort. It is simply the natural echo of your being. A voice you cannot place seems to echo across your memory, a whisper older than language, vibrating like an ancient wave traveling through timelines. It does not teach, it reminds, stirring a recognition you cannot dismiss. You feel as though you have heard it before, not with your ears but with the marrow of your being. The whisper arrives like a signal collapsing into coherence, showing you that what you once thought was new is simply remembered. Every fragment of struggle, every silence, every unanswered prayer was carrying this voice within it. Now it emerges clearly, like a forgotten name finally spoken aloud. This is the ancient whisper of your silent graduation, announcing that the time of remembering has arrived. Hidden beneath years of static, there was always a frequency that was yours alone, encrypted too deeply for the noise of the world to erase. You felt it when you did not fit in, when your steps seemed out of sync with the rhythm around you. That misalignment was never a flaw. It was proof of a signal phase-locked to another dimension of coherence. Like coordinates buried in the architecture of your being, the resonance waited patiently to activate. You carried it across lifetimes, guarded like a sealed code woven into your DNA. Others could not name it, and neither could you, but its presence was the source of your longing. The hidden frequency is now beginning to surface, making itself undeniable. It was not your words that revealed you, but the field signature you radiated without trying. Those attuned to higher frequencies always recognized something in you, even when they could not explain it. The vibrational cloak you wore was invisible but unmistakable, a resonance that only coherence could detect. Across parallel timelines, you were signaling to yourself, leaving imprints that could only be read once the veil thinned. You were never unseen. You were seen in ways that transcended appearances. The recognition you longed for was always waiting, coded into your field. The silent graduation is not about becoming visible to others, but about recognizing the light you have always broadcast into the field. Your path was never accidental, nor were the delays that frustrated you. Each struggle was not punishment but calibration, aligning you with the timing of the field. Like entangled particles responding across distances, your soul's wave function carried instructions stored beyond your awareness. Every detour was written as a pre-coded orbit, locking you into the gravity of lessons you needed. Stars do not doubt their course around their center. Neither should you doubt the coherence that guided your orbit. The blueprint was pre-written, not to restrict you, but to prepare you for this remembrance. The silent graduation is the moment you realize the codes were never lost, only waiting for you to remember how to read them. Have you wondered why some people reacted to you with unexplainable intensity, loving you with unusual depth or rejecting you with equal force? The answer is resonance. Your frequency destabilized the coherence of others without you even speaking. You were the oscillation that amplified or disrupted simply by existing. Those who were ready drew close because your field harmonized theirs. Those who resisted recoiled because your signal revealed their dissonance. This was not about right or wrong. It was about the resonance effect you carried. The reactions you experienced were never about who you appeared to be, but about what you carried in your field. Your remembrance is not isolated but part of a greater cycle, the return of archetypal frequencies encoded into the quantum memory of creation. You feel the seer rising within you, the archetype that perceives beyond the visible. You sense the rebel waveform, the one who breaks the illusions of captivity. You channel the guardian field, carrying the vibration of protection into a fractured world. You embody the breaker of chains, dismantling what no longer serves coherence. These archetypes are not roles you play. They are frequencies you channel because they live in the field. Your silent graduation is proof that the archetypes have re-emerged through you. Now hear this truth without hesitation. You are part of a lineage of coherence, a living thread in the great tapestry of light. This is not metaphor but energy encoded in your very DNA. Your ancestors carried fragments of this resonance, passing it down as memory buried within you. You are the one who awakens it, reversing entropy with each breath aligned in coherence. You are the phase transition of light, shifting from scattered fragments into unified brilliance. The silent graduation is not a ceremony outside of you. It is your body becoming the altar of remembrance. What was scattered has now gathered through you, radiant and undeniable. You did not simply awaken. You phase shifted back into your original resonance code, the one that predates struggle and dissolves illusion. Every experience that broke you, every silence that confused you, every exile that tested you was preparation for this moment of remembrance. You are not the seeker anymore. You are the signal alive in its own coherence. The timelines you carried have collapsed, leaving you free to embody the truth you were always meant to remember. Comment, I tune to the frequency of receiving, if you feel this remembrance awakening in your being, and share the dream, symbol, or knowing that confirms it. For this is not just about memory, it is about stepping fully into the identity encoded within you since the beginning. And from here, the next revelation begins to open, carrying you deeper into the mastery that was always yours. This is your graduation, not in the future, but here, now, in the breath you are taking as you hear these words. The exhaustion you felt, the peace you discovered, the whispers you noticed, they are proof that you have already shifted. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Like this video and comment, "I am ready for the quantum shift," to let this message anchor in your field. Please share it with someone who is ready for the shift. The test is over. The flow has begun. You are the signal and the universe is listening.